Hi there, my name is Alastair Bruce and I'm the minister here in Ellon Parish Church. Thought I would just come on for a little second to give you a little bit of an update about where we're at the moment with the coronavirus situation and the different phases that we're about to go into in terms of the Scottish Government's roadmap for easing lockdown. First of all, though, I hope and pray that this finds you well, that you've managed to have some meaningful contact with your loved ones and your friends over the last while, either in person or in some kind of physically distanced way in a garden or on the phone, or perhaps using one of the many social media platforms that we've become so familiar with over the last few months. You'll remember that due to the global COVID-19 pandemic and the government's advice given in the middle of March, that on the 28th of March this year, our church building closed, along with the vast majority of Church of Scotland buildings. I'm not really aware of another time in the history of the Church of Scotland where this has happened, and it's undoubtedly been a difficult time for us all. Not only has gathering for physical worship ceased, so has gathering for meetings, as well as gathering for a whole range of pastoral support, such as coffee meetups or visits to arrange funerals and support for our families through this. Families have been separated, our older relatives isolated, sometimes in very difficult circumstances. Younger families have faced the unknowns of trying to keep up with children's education at home and juggling work with no childcare. Others have been furloughed, others still face redundancy, uncertainty, and worry about the future. And those who live alone of all ages have had to deal with the sense of distance and isolation that this has brought. In the first few days of Scotland's response to the pandemic, the ministry team and the elders sought out ways to creatively tackle the problem. This led to the online worship programme we've pioneered, the rolling out of the neighbourhoods of care model much more quickly than we had anticipated, the increase in referrals to Basics Barn, and our support and partnership with the Ellon Community Resilience team. It's been a joy to see how Ellon Parish Church and the congregation have responded to and stepped up to dealing with the biggest crisis that this country and the church has faced since the two world wars. What I have experienced and continue to experience is a willingness to work together as a team to support our congregation pastorally, physically, and spiritually. Even amongst the anxiety, I've heard stories of answered prayer and of congregation members feeling comforted and strengthened in their faith through the church at this time. This, of course, is especially due to the connections made through the neighbourhoods of care. So my thanks go to those who have coordinated, phoned, shopped, and generally looked after those in their neighbourhoods. And this is an ongoing thing, and it's so vitally important for our pastoral mission. I'm sure, though, that you're aware that we are tentatively beginning to move out of the most severe stages of lockdown. Most recently, we've moved into stage 2 of the Scottish Government's roadmap, and we are anticipating moving into stage 3 over the next few weeks. Within these stages, there is guidance about how churches and places of worship can function. Thankfully, the Church of Scotland has produced a detailed set of guidelines to help individual churches work out how they might like to reopen their church buildings, what they have to do, and for what purpose, if that is the case. In stage 2, we're allowed to open for private prayer, marriage and other ceremonies, as well as funerals. However, this can only happen if physical distancing and strict hygiene practices are followed. The numbers attending marriages will be restricted by the government, and funerals will be subject to capping of numbers, which means that during stage 2, the numbers will be restricted to close family only, which obviously excludes friends and neighbours. And there is a ban on singing due to studies which have indicated that water droplets produced from singing can travel further than the 2 meters required for physical distancing. And so the guidance for opening the church building is clear. Each person must be able to maintain a distance of 2 meters from any other person of another household at all times when they're in the church building. And so the capacity of the building is a factor in this. We've done a little bit of work on this, and currently the church building could accommodate around 38 people. The building also needs to be deep cleaned every time it's used. Because of all these considerations, the Team Leaders Hub, who are acting on behalf of the Kirk session during this crisis, met last Wednesday to consider how we wished to proceed. The team felt that as we haven't generally had a lot of call for using the building for private prayer, which is individual, non-minister or worship leader-led prayer, we wouldn't prepare the building to be open for this. However, the property team have begun preparing the building to open for funerals, and taking into consideration Kirkfest and holidays, are confident to have the building ready to accommodate funerals by the beginning of August. As things progress, the advice and guidance can change quite rapidly, but it's thought that we may be able to move into phase 3 around the 10th of July. However, the First Minister announced on the 25th of June that the earliest date a place of worship might be allowed to welcome an extended group is not until the 23rd of July, which means there can be no physical worship or any other gatherings, meetings, etc., in or around the church buildings until then. Moreover, there is no obligation or pressure for us to return to physical worship on Sunday the 26th of July, the first Sunday after the 23rd. And we won't be ready to return to worship on that date. A number of factors need to be taken into account before we return to physical worship, many of which are in response to the kind of worship we might be able to take part in. Currently, there would be no hospitality, no teas or coffees, no singing, only 30-odd people allowed in the building, and possibly wearing masks during worship. And those who find it hard to physically distance themselves, for example, young children, or those who are shielding or in vulnerable categories, simply wouldn't be able to attend. Therefore, the Kirk Session or Team Leaders Hub and Ministry team would need to decide whether this was a positive move based on our research, experience, and feelings of the congregation. These are questions we don't have to wrestle with just now, but we'll need to look at them over the next few weeks. In the meantime, and for the next while, we'll be continuing to provide a worship service online, as well as worship events during the week. We'll also provide DVDs for those who find that more helpful. We'll continue the Bridge supplement, including the weekly sermon, thoughts for the week by the worship team, prayers by the mission and discipleship team, and any other news from that week. We're looking forward to hosting Kirkfest online with events for all ages, which we hope that you'll enjoy and be blessed by. And may I also take this opportunity to add a personal thanks to everyone who has supported me and the man's family with prayer, baking, food deliveries, meals, and general laughter and fun. Your encouragement is something that keeps me inspired during times of struggle. At the end of Moses' life, just before he passed on the leadership of Israel to Joshua, he gave him these words of encouragement for what was to come. He said, "Be strong and bold. Have no fear of dread, because it is the Lord your God who goes before you. He will not fail you or forsake you." It's my firm belief that God has led us as a church through this crisis, and he will continue to lead us on. I pray that you put your hope and your faith in the same God to help you. We continue to live in uncertain times, but our God is faithful. So let's continue to hold on to that. And so may God's grace and peace and his blessing be upon you. And I hope to see you very, very soon. Thank you.